We sold 65,000 pairs in 12 months. Meet Rahul and then be a part of his design team for his Puma collab. And then I've always used my Instagram as my LinkedIn. And then I found a DM from the HR. And so Nike took a very deliberate call somewhere 10 years, 15 years ago. They're exiting India. Because when I went to this factory, all the Nike molds were like, they had spent around 50 lakhs on a laser machine to destroy the molds into 4. So the factory can't use it. That's the amount of mistrust they have on Indian factories, right? And if you come to me with hey, I want to make a shoe brand, I'll tell you not to do it. That's usually my conversation with anybody. Like, I'll ask you how much, let's say, bank balance do you have? You might say 1 CR. I'm like, put it into an FD, chill. The decision to make Ludic sliders a bit wide fit was from the research and the knowledge of majority of the Indians having a broad feet, right? Now but we've been consuming Western brands which are, so that for me was a design problem. India should be known for these modern footwear and modern product designs being built, designed in India, like how Apple flexes, like designed in California and things like that. It should be a thing.
Yeah. Groundbreakin.
Ajaaz, my man, welcome to the Groundbreakin.
Thank you, Q. How are you?
How's it going?
All good.
I'm doing good. What's up?
What's up? It's been a while, no? We've been talking about this, so happy to be here. Finally.
Been a while.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, almost.
Or maybe more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can see Groundbreaking breaking some grounds. So
Cool.
Good to see.
For our guest, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Ajaaz, principal designer at Ludic, now a co-founder. Yeah, that's my current.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I think those who don't know, me and Ajaaz studied in the same college, spent 5 intensive years together learning design, crying about it. And I think traveled a bit of world together. And I think you've always been into shoes, footwear, and what I absolutely love to see is the kind of projects you've been doing, which you've always sort of dreamt of. Let's go a little back to our design college, and maybe talk a little about your journey, where you're coming from. How did you become a footwear designer? And I think if you ask me, I think you're more than that. You're sort of a creative director, brand builder sort of person, where you build spaces like Our Deep Movement, one of the biggest underground collective that we've seen. Tell us about that, Ajaaz. How do you do it?
So I think maybe one more step behind, right? From my high school, I pretty much knew I wanted to do design. I think the initial inclination was automobile. So of course, I grew up in Kerala, and the most favorable product or object was cars. But somewhere during, I think, post 10th, I got to know about product design because a lot of folks from my school were going to these design colleges. And then I got to know about product design, industrial design, which then I realized, okay, there's a lot more to do than just, like, let's say, cars. And so the intent was there very early on. Was a tough time convincing my folks because, again, I think 10 years ago, design was a risky career move, I would say, or at least that's what your parents think, right? So I was, again, forced to take biomaths and things like that. But I think the college, as probably you would know, was pretty much the most crucial couple of years. More than as a designer, like a person, like a way of life kind of happened there. So yeah, I think in college it was industrial design, focused on product. But I think there was, like any design college, there was no specialization in footwear or any product, for example. Like, after you study the basics of just like design courses, or how a designer should think, all your, let's say, your ethnography, your observations, your research skills, and a lot of these, you kind of pick your inclination, right? So again, the college, the seniors we had, the projects we saw, because again we had a lot of exposure to this European, let's say, brands, and even our classmates, right, for that matter. So a lot of these folks who are working in Puma got an internship at Puma, and then I was like, oh wow, okay, footwear is something you can do as well, and it's. Uh, uh, I mean, I never saw it from a fashion lens. I just thought, oh, we were all seeing things like product, right? So yeah, so it became footwear design more than anything. And then, and like you said, on the side, we were doing a lot of other things like all this music podcast and things. So Fila happened very surprisingly because my goal was any European brands because they have the infrastructure for footwear design. I never imagined in 2018 there would be a design studio specifically for footwear in India. So I think it was a graduation. I spent some time with Box Out FM, who was a community radio in Delhi, and I was traveling back home. And then I've always used my Instagram as my LinkedIn. And then I found a DM from the HR, and she was like, "Hey, we are Gravitex. We own Fila, and we have a design studio. Would you like to come and see the space?" And like it was timing, right? I was just in Bombay, and then I dropped by. They gave me an offer for, let's say, as a lead footwear designer because again they were just setting it up. I didn't think much. I was like, okay, great. Uh, I really want to pick this up. I want to see how this thing works in India. Of course, there was half your heart saying, okay, maybe try again in Europe, but I don't know. There was some kind of conviction to stay in India and do take up that opportunity. So yeah, 2 years at Fila, and then maybe before lockdown, somewhere I wanted to try out doing more projects, like more of this consultant role, because I thought that's how my brain worked. Like, wanted to do a lot more projects than just Fila, right? So did that for I think 3-4 years, where I got opportunity to work on one-off projects for a couple of these Indian brands, but also meet Rahul, and then be a part of his design team for his Puma collab. So somewhere I was beating around footwear,
Yeah.
let's say genre somewhere here and there, while I was also like working as a brand builder, or like generally like a design. What do you say? Services with Non-Zero, our folks
Yeah.
at Non-Zero.
I
So
think I think for me, how for me, like as a friend, it became serious when you sort of got shortlisted for this Pensole World Championship. I think that was for me. That happened after Fila.
no, that was during our college time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that
I
was.
think that sort of was one of the
Mm,
project that kind of like even to our friend circle, we all
yeah.
thought that
Yeah.
okay, this
Yeah.
is like a
Yeah.
huge thing.
Yeah, I think that was 2014. It was Pensole Academy's first World Sneaker Championship. Gave a shot, so and then got to the top 8 in the world. So that was, like you said, what do you say, an acknowledgement by the friend circle, but also
Yeah.
myself, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, probably, kind of a boost of confidence to again try it out again. Um, so yeah, that was like you said, it was pretty much a mark.
And one of the highlights is for me is also the it was what is Masala Mind Blower, the Fila
The
shoes.
Fila,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was also one of the
Yeah,
projects
so
that I
that's the funny story. I think so. I've been, let's say, not as much these days, but very social guy. I think every work I've got, or everything, every leads I've done, it's all because I was at the right party at the right time with the right folks, right? But that's also where the music inclination kind of helped me. So um, I I had a word with Anand Ahuja, the founder of Veg Non-Veg, at the Box Out FM launch party in Bombay, and this was we just like kept in touch, and then I was doing my final design internship in Antwerp, so we were in DMs just chatting, and then he had asked. He saw a couple of my posts again, like I said, like Instagram. I keep putting some kind of sketches or stuff, and then he was like, "Hey, we are doing a project. So veg non-veg had just started, and then Fila collab was one of the first
Yeah.
collabs they did, right? So I think even in the Indian landscape, that was one of the first, like a footwear collab that had come. So again, veg non-veg super kicks were the first boutique stores, and then veg non-veg Fila became the first, like let's say, a collection drop, let's say, within footwear, and that was also peak of drops and like this
Yeah.
Air Jordan hype
Yeah.
and a lot of those, right? So I got some time working on that project. So for 2 months, I went to Delhi. He provided me the entire, a stay and stuff like that, and then I was working on that project. A couple, and mostly, I think I just met him once for the project, but mostly we were on emails, and a really, like, sharp guy. He knew exactly what he wanted. I think that's also somewhere how I fall. What do you say? Kind of fell into the Fila HR, let's say, the circle, because I don't know otherwise how she would have found me, right?
Yeah.
Because they would have seen my name in the email threads for this Masala Mind Blower. So Mind Blower is the Fila shoe, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Masala was the theme.
I think this is also the time where Fila was also trying to do something in
Hmm.
India, and I think they had some acquisition. I can be wrong.
No, so Fila. So I'll tell you. So Cravitex Brands is the parent company. They're run by two brothers, if I'm not wrong, and they have a couple of brands under them. So Fila, Proline, and one of the brothers is in the UK, and they own probably 3x more brands within UK, right? So your Juicy Couture, Fila again. So these guys had a lot of brands under them, but it was a clear licensing model, right? So Fila had given them license to produce and design shoes specifically for the APAC region, while they could also sell the Fila global products. But that was again the new generation of that family took over, Mr. Rohan Batra, and then he grew up in the UK, and then he knew the importance of having designers and a design studio. So he put forward this idea. I mean, I would say, like, ballsy enough to start a design studio in India, and
Yeah.
specifically in footwear. So for me, all of those kind of triggered me to take up the jump with them. I'm like, why not? Like, let me try. It was the conversation I had with, again, Rohan, that kind of made me realize both of us are doing the same struggle. He's also trying to make a mark doing the studio. So yeah, that was how it.
Yeah. And talk now. I mean, what like I have been seeing, a lot of experiments, a lot of experiment in terms of footwear design, curating stuff, being a person who's always, coming up with interesting people, sort of a curator. I got to know a lot of things about, about music, fashion from you. Um, I want you to talk about how you've been keeping this habit of curating things and curating really cool things that can maybe blow up tomorrow, right? So I think you have sort of an ability to see something that gonna do good in the future. So I think that taste, that curation is something that I absolutely love about you.
Um, I Well, thank you. But I would. I mean, I don't know how I don't think like I studied it. Like it just happened. So if I have to then really look back into me growing up, and, like, the family and upbringing and stuff. So there were a lot of, let's say, my dad was. He always dresses smart, and like he has a big wardrobe of things, and like uh, maybe a lot than one should have. So a little bit. So, and then he used to take me for these monthly music shopping. So a lot of these smaller things which I do right now is a result of me getting exposed to it at a young age. So and so music, fashion, and things like that. But uh, as I mean, as the years went by, and then again, design college had a big role to play, because then there were tools which we got exposed to, right? Like the way we research, let's say, things like Pinterest or whatever, like all these websites. And uh, I think the act of sorting your interests or your research or your curation, that's the game. Because if I don't sort it, then I can't really present it, right? So be it a Spotify playlist, be it like your Pinterest board, whatever. So I think that uh, gesture or like that good habit of uh, putting all of this in a well formatted folder, or like I don't know, that really helps. But other than that, it's just like having an eye, or like having a ear, which I think it's not a very quantitative, or like I don't have an actual process to it. But yeah, I think the important thing is kind of giving a structure to your
Yeah.
research interest and things like
Yeah.
that. So
What I also have always been curious about the conviction that you had with bunch of people from our college only, right? I think bunch of people. I have never seen you know footwear designers outside the organization we've studied in, like out of our college. I think there's bunch of people like Funny Ram.
mm,
Now I think Prathamesh is there. I'm maybe missing, but Zishan.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
now
yeah.
he's more
Pivotal.
of an industrial designer, but
Yeah,
I think he was even Roshan,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think so that definitely I think it kind of inspired us collectively. Like at one point, everyone was just trying to sketch shoes,
Mm.
right? In our sketching classes and even in our free time. But I think conviction to stay in the game long enough is something I think that's a difficult task, especially at least from this side of the world, where
Hmm.
I think bunch of people who are maybe doing footwear are not doing footwear, but at the same time, bunch of people who are doing footwear are doing insanely good. Um, right? Tell me about the conviction you've had, because I think I mean we all know that like we don't have s- that good of an ecosystem to kind of maybe start a footwear brand, or maybe a bunch of brands that are already out there are sort of just white labeling. There's no sense of originality. Tell us about how you've been tackling these spaces, and also like now leading a brand like Ludic with that, who's trying to build a global brand.
Uh, I think somewhere along the journey, because footwear again, I started seeing it as a product led. So for me, because from that industrial design background, you see product, like the human interaction with the product and problem solving and things like that. But somewhere the footwear also falls into the umbrella of fashion. Right now, that's where I kind of have my own battles in my head. But if you take any example in fashion, right? You take all the designers we know, let's say your Karl Lagerfeld or any of the prominent names, right? Um they Most of these guys started their own brand, or like they got the popularity when probably in their late 30s or early 40s, right? But they stuck to it. So I realized sticking to it, like if you really have to make it easy for the audience, right? Like for example, like I could design speakers, I could design a lot of things I love, but if my name has to be linked to a product, then make it easy for the consumer. So might as well stick to like one expertise, right? Um, so footwear again, because like a couple of these checkpoints which I've had in life, even my first internship where I got shortlisted for Puma but couldn't go because of college. They changed the name
Yeah.
and visa issues. So somewhere for me it was like, okay, let me just like stick to it, right? Because but it's very tempting, man, because again, like a lot of things you're fiddling with on a daily basis, and you're like, oh, I want to try that, I want to try this. So the initial years was me telling me, bro, just don't lose focus, let's just grind with it. And anyway, you're enjoying it, of course, right? So um, the conviction to stay in India was, I think, I don't know, that's just for me. Because I got an experience in Europe, I also realized it's a great place to stay and learn, but it won't be a great place to make a ripple, right? Which I could do back in my home country, right? So that's also why when I came back and I got this, where here, if I do probably 10, 15 years of this, I could probably give a lot more into this growing ecosystem. Um, uh, with a sense of patriotism in that way. But I think there was a lot more challenge doing this in India, and I thought, okay, just pick that challenge up and see where it leads me.
Yeah. Do I mean like I've been in number of conversation with you with working with different teams. Like I think when you were working with KL Rahul, you were working with Puma design team. A lot of times there are design decisions that depends upon the manufacturing capabilities, and that's a that's a painful
Hmm.
subject we all know about. It's very easy for us to go to China, maybe again bring this shoe and like make a brand out of it. But I think what I've seen from this side is that you've been building your products very carefully and sort of India only. Give me a detailed go through of how one would develop a product, especially a shoe, say a
Hmm.
shoe in India, um, and from your ideas to your sketches to to the stores.
So I think Fila was the learning ground, and Ludic is where I'm learning judgment, right? When I say learning ground, it was uh, like, let's say the school taught us systems, and then Fila was exactly the opposite, where a layer of reality, a layer of production capabilities, a lot of things can happen between design intent and the product reaching shelf, and the gap in between is where your learning happens. This is exactly what happened in my case. So in Fila, like any other Indian brand, the brief starts from the sales team, right? They would want to
Yeah.
make a product at this price point so they can have be profitable, right? Initially it was very counterintuitive for me. I was like, how do you give design brief based on a price? I was pretty like uh, counterintuitive to the briefs we've received in our education, right? So uh, the initial couple of months, or like let's say the year, was me battling it. I'm like, why are the briefs like this? Why don't you guys try? But somewhere it made sense, because in Fila, what I did was, okay, now I knew design. What I didn't know was the other bit of it. Like the 5% is your sketch and like your CAD and things like that, right? But there's a layer of production capabilities, your materials, your what can India actually do, right? People say India is like the largest, second largest footwear manufacturers, but it's super unorganized. And all of this was a learning for me in Fila. So in Fila, what I did was I was working very close to the footwear developer. Shout out to Boopy. So I used to ask him like, "Yo, can you take me with me? Can you take me along to these factories?" He keeps traveling to Delhi and all these NCR factories, right? So I started traveling a lot with him. I started seeing exactly how these factories work, and then you're already sober down your concepts. You're like, ये तो नहीं
Reality
होगा.
check.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't, right? So that was a big learning, right? Because then when I go back to my drawing board, I have these things which I've studied from factories and stuff. So um, that learning is really important as a footwear designer, especially in India if you're working with an Indian brand, because don't let it demotivate you. Rather, like just throw yourself into a factory, spend a couple of days and see what can be done, how the industry works. So for me, those 2 years in Fila, when I learned this landscape, made me automatically a highly valuable person who's more than just footwear design, right? I'm not just designing. Now if I'm talking to you as a client, if you come to me with a, hey, I want to make a shoe brand, I'll tell you not to do it. That's usually my conversation with anybody. Like I'll ask you how much, let's say, bank balance do you have? You might say 1 CR. I'm like, put it into an FD, chill. Or like because you can't get into footwear with a 1 CR if you want to make a mark, right? But if you're telling me, hey, I'm just going to be a massy brand, then I'll tell you, then you don't need me. Then you would need me as a curator. Both of us can go to China. I can pick a set of designs for you, make a decent branding, like basic these colors and stuff. But that's also something I didn't personally see helping me as a designer. So 8 out of 10 projects I've had that way, I've just said no. I've learned this, whatever the people say, art of saying no, very early in my career, because of the same reasons. And I think a lot of people respect me for saving their money somewhere because they didn't get
Yeah.
into footwear,
Yeah.
right? Um, I think the other bit was like even for example, like when I started working with KL Rahul for the Puma collab, right? I was like, oh, now I'm with a celebrity sportsman, right? Like now everything's gonna be smooth, right? I can just like go to the Puma office and say, hey, this is what KL wants, and they give back the same reason. Hey, the shoe has to be like 3,500, because even within Puma's collab, KL falls into a certain hierarchy, right? There are some athletes above him, some athletes below him. So obviously they have spread their collab in that manner. So KL Rahul's collab will play between this range
Yeah.
of a price point. And then probably Virat Kohli would be a different price point. Somebody else would be a different price point. So uh, what I saw was like, let's say I got, there was a fun time when I was telling KL Rahul, KL, I think this is how the industry works. Now I've seen it, like I had to see it through your collab as well to know this is how the industry works. So I had a lot of chat with him saying, this is exactly how brands work. It's not a one-off problem.
Yeah.
It's they have hierarchies. They have certain goals within the collabs and within their outward stuff. So yeah, the ground reality is somewhere it has to make business sense, and otherwise you're starting a boutique brand, right? Like I can
Yeah.
start a brand called Ajaaz and make one shoe a year, and I can do that as well. So depends.
Yeah.
So
What do you think about that? Like making a brand and sell one shoe a year? What's the.
uh, I mean, so for that, then you need to have credibility, right?
Hmm.
Then this,
You need to have projects that have done well
yeah.
out there.
I mean, let's say if you are the person doing this, right? Q or Deepak as a person has to be known
Yeah.
for at least 2 decades. So when you are 2 decades into your career, tomorrow you go and say, I'm starting something. You have that much compounded
Hmm.
interest in you,
Yeah.
right, from folks. So then it's very easy to do. Otherwise, it's a bit premature. Probably or use those years to understand the business also. So you will take really smart decisions. Even if it's that one shoe, you'll know
Yeah.
exactly to hype things up. And uh, so yeah, I mean, if people ask me if I want to start a brand, maybe, but it's not something I think at all. I think I'm just seeing the immediate challenge for currently, which is Ludic, and then how to work on this brand for the next decade and achieve the brand goals. And then probably because by doing that, the byproduct would also be myself getting some recognition, which could give me the confidence to start my own brand.
Yeah. One thing I've been seeing everywhere, and I think which sometimes frustrates me, and considering like maybe through you, maybe through my friend circle, I know what's happening, what's good, what's not, like how people are building brands. Sort of taste is there, right? What are your thoughts about uh, people building homegrown brands?
Mm.
Like
Uh,
what's the scam, man? Like what is the the funny part is that everyone speaks sort of in the same way, but like it's sort of like rephrased into different things and just like saying the same exact same thing.
mm.
Whether they are doing like shirt with some with some craftsmanship, or even if they are white labeling.
Yeah, I
What
think a clothing shop and a coffee shop sounds the same, right? With the same
mm,
narrative. But see, I
yeah,
have a different take on this. I find it very interesting and positive in that sense, where at least people are willing to do
yeah,
homegrown brands, which means uh, the new age of consumerism, right? I'm saying like probably our generation below, like maybe tired of these legacies brands, right? Like, why don't you try something new? The kind of what do you say? The content you consume, a lot of you have access to somebody sitting in a corner of I don't know, and then you have access to what he's making. So the way you consume content has changed, which means the your preferences are also kind of fine tuned to that or like changing to that, right? So I wouldn't mind tomorrow. I mean, you wouldn't mind trying a Ludic, even though you're a Nike fan. You wouldn't mind trying a Comet, anything
yeah.
for that matter.
We saw Pradeep, know about your brand, right?
Yeah,
He
correct.
was
So
looking for green shoes specifically.
yeah, so that's what. So that's actually a. It's really interesting, right? Like 10 years ago, if you had asked me, I would like everyone. I would suggest everyone a Nike, right, or any XYZ legacy Western brands, because I think, especially India as a consumer market, we are always looking to the West, and in the recent let's say a couple of seasons or years, you see how the West is looking to us, right? Like the Prada, Kolhapuri, to like all of these.
Yeah.
So there is, I think, a bigger shift happening globally, not it, within like culture generally, like music, art, fashion. Let's say this shifting centers right to this new brown era, and like Indian musicians, Indian craftsmanship, a lot of them getting, let's say, the stage
Yeah.
it always needed. So, but again, fashion is cyclic, right? So now probably for the next 3 years you would see it, and then they would move on to something else. But the confidence for people calling things homegrown or even doing it is a result of this consumer shift, consumption shift in that sense. Um, Within the homegrown, of course, they, like you said, you could think it. There's a certain sense of scam in it, which I think this made in India is a big scam, right? Like China folks are very happy to put a sticker made in India, but it's just the reality, right?
Yeah.
Especially, okay, I can talk within footwear, right? So how much ever you try in within footwear, you can never have 100% Indian uh, designed and developed footwear. Period. Like you can't, because none of our factories have the capabilities to make the components, like these synthetic components, especially, right? We are very good with our the clothing, like the craftsmanship, let's say cotton
Yeah.
and things like that, right? A lot of resources within apparel, but when it comes to footwear, all these, most, I mean, I would say 90% minimum would, the raw materials, you're still dependent on China, right? So they had the infrastructure, they have the raw materials, they have all of those things. So uh, yes, within, let's say, 10 brands who are claiming to be homegrown, I think there's multitudes to it. Some are just putting a sticker of homegrown, some are giving that narrative because they're doing it in India and they feel good. And I mean, they're not flexing just because it's homegrown, you have to buy it. It's more of an understatement, right?
Yeah.
Like, probably even at Ludic, we are not like shouting it's a made in India thing, but somewhere we want to show like we're making it in India for the globe, right? So yeah, I think homegrown, as a, like, when you put it that way, it does feel like a bit of overused. But I find it
Yeah.
pretty interesting. I find the confidence within consumers to even put that label on their
Yeah.
brand as a good shift.
Yeah. I think as a collective, it might maybe put the whole ecosystem into a space where, okay, some global brand can come out of it, right?
Mm, I feel so.
I was interviewing Bhavika, founder of
Capsule.
Capsule. Yeah. I was talking to her, and I was talking to her. I was just trying to pick her brain. Wanted to actually got her on podcast, but we took a halt for some time. Maybe I should reach out to her again. She was telling me. I mean, I asked her, do you think there's some sort of a saturation out there in the market when it comes to designer labels, like nice fashion brands, coming into the Indian spaces. Like she said, like you might see 20 brands, but like no one's not a bunch of people are actually thinking of building a brand, because I think it's very easy to print a t-shirt and sell it, but building a brand is a very different thing, and I think that sort of stayed with me. What are you folks doing differently with Ludic, considering I think your leadership is a nice mix of someone who understands supply chain, sales, business part of it, and you sort of a person who knows about what global demands are, tasteful stuff. What are you folks trying to do differently at Ludic?
Okay, so one step before that, so Ludic was started by Ishit, and the brand is based out of Ahmedabad. I joined them as a design consultant, footwear design consultant for 3 months, then probably extended for 6 more months. After the 6th month, again, so they gave me an opportunity to be the creative director, and then very recently as a co-founder, right? That's purely a result of how the relationship has progressed between Ishit and myself. um, because very early on, like I said earlier, like even to Ishit, I told him don't start the brand, which he kind of went back and he's like, oh, he took it as a challenge, right? So I think somewhere it stayed in his head. So Now, when it comes to purely how we are approaching it, right? See, there's a short game and obviously the long game. The very early on, Ishida told me the brand, this particular brand he is building, is something very dear to him, and he wants to build it slow. He's not compared to his previous, let's say, businesses where he took a brand, sold it to very BPC categories and stuff. So this was, he was very personally attached to it, and somewhere he resonated. I mean, I resonated with that vision of, okay, let's build it slow, right? But my tests towards the brand, my first, one of the first projects were the Ludic sliders, right? Um, now, why would a young brand spend, let's say, 50, 60 lakhs upfront just to make the mold, right? When a brand decides to do that, you're already playing a different game, because 8 other brands have all gone to China, picked up an open mold, put their logo. So from that point onwards, Ludic has been like, it's a differentiator, right? So the importance of tooling, the importance. So within footwear, the long-term goal is owning your IPs, right? Your IPs are your toolings. Toolings are basically your souls, right?
Yeah.
Imagine like Nike has your Pegasus and Adidas has Boost and Puma has Nitro. So all these are like toolings, right? All these are their, let's say, platforms on which they invest. They probably do every 1.5 year they'll bring out a new one. Like Nike had Free Run, and so these are all properties. These are all IPs. These are all things which compounds value for a footwear business. And from day one, my conversation or my attempt at Ludic has been to create this. This will probably make sense as a brand or to an investor, to anybody, probably in 10 years, right? Like, because we own it. Nobody can, if tomorrow anybody has a slider that looks like Ludic's, like, it's probably a win for me as a
Yeah.
designer in that sense. So this tooling, importance of this, owning your own molds, owning your toolings, developing. So at Ludic, we do things a bit slow. We probably will have 2 big launches in a year. If it gets pushed, we are not sad, because we would rather make mistakes in our research rather than having a faulty product. So the sliders took a year and a half. Um, we are not trying to be or showcasing India purely from an aesthetic or a visual perspective. It's demographic empathy. So, for example, the decision to make Ludic sliders a bit wide fit was from the research and the knowledge of Indians having, majority of the Indians having a broad feet, right? Now that's but we've been consuming Western brands which are,
Yeah.
so that for me was a design problem, right? Like, that's something you can easily solve, right? Like, just spend a lot of time getting the last and things right. Yes, there was a risk, because of course when it comes to the female audience or myself, I don't have a wide foot for that matter. So, but a lot of, but again, I'm not the majority,
Yeah.
right? So somewhere I knew there would be a lot of, let's say, exchanges and replacement and non-fitting and all that. But the fact we sold 65,000 pairs in 12 months
Wow.
was a big acknowledgement. Again, like the small victory in my head. I like, okay, so now it makes sense. So now the brand has a lot more confidence in the concepts, or like in the, what do you say, the strategy I'm talking
Yeah.
about, right? So yeah, for Ludic, I think the main thing is Indian demographic empathy, trying to make problems around that, which could be anatomy, it could be your weather conditions, it could be a lot of those, uh, but not purely aesthetic, right? Like,
Yeah.
you won't find like an ikat print or like
Yeah.
bandhani and tie and dye. Like, I mean, it's all cool. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's not something we will run the brand on. Like,
Yeah.
we might have a collection sometimes in the future with
Yeah.
a really cool brand.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think, of I think to me it's, you folks are, I think, building a global brand that's coming out of India. I think that'll be a better statement than someone who's just selling in India. I what and also like we should also talk about the very very experimental ads and marketing you've been
Mm.
doing with Dawn, right?
Yeah.
Really been loving them. What are your thoughts there? I mean, it's what is inspiring you to do such things? Like I'm sure like for a lot of people there's ROAS, right? There needs
Mm.
to be a certain
Mm.
investment that comes from
Mm.
your ads, the production you've been doing. How have you been picking it? How have you been trying to convince yourself that hey, like okay, we are trying to maybe create something that has amazing storytelling, but is it gonna sell?
Mm.
What are your thoughts around that?
Uh, I think because again, Ludic is a D2C brand, we are pretty dependent on these sales channels like Meta, Google, and you're always bidding for the space on the internet. Um, Very personally, for me, that was been probably the most interesting couple of things at Ludic. The storytelling part, the art direction, the creative direction, campaigns. Purely because every time I've designed the footwear, I'm also thinking how it should be sold, but I never got the platform. So Ludic was my first, playground for me to even try that. And of course, Don and LVC, the team, they came in and they're pretty much like our in-house team, right? So we've never done any other campaigns again because again, Don and we all have the same school of thought, an
Yeah,
industrial designer who's a filmmaker. So I never had to explain the product a lot. He just got it, and then so the sparring of ideas were really, interesting in that manner. Uh, so within Ludic, there are two collections, right? So there's something called Daily Move, which is your no-brainer essentials, all your sliders, and like 90% of what you see on the website. And then there's Future Works, right? Now, Future Works is where the tagline for the collection is mindful products for mindless pursuits. So the element of play is always there within Ludic, right? Like it's not too serious a brand, right? So mindless pursuits, but mindful products is where the design team, so we have a very lean design team, one industrial designer, one graphic designer, and a very small team. It's where we have a little bit of fun, right? Like the product has a bit more quirk when it comes to the design element. You'll find some
yeah,
kind of quirk in terms of interaction. So the entire theme for that campaign was based on that, right? Like we set up a world called Fuvo. It's like these like a little whack folk sitting in a bunker. Um, they have these. I mean, they have these weird like a keyboard. They're weird people. So we wanted to establish Future Works uh, as a world rather than a product. The
yeah,
product comes from that world. So that was really, if you ask me, it's not massy, right? Like it's probably people wouldn't get it in the first go, but I think the only success metric to this is consistently doing it and then establishing the world
yeah,
campaign after campaign. So that's the tricky part, right? Like because the way people consume content changes, like one track or some music chop is all it takes to be the next viral
yeah.
thing. So the bigger challenge here is resistance. Like how do we not fall into the trends of video consumption and still make the sales team happy with the ROAS and things so that's
Yeah,
very challenging, right? A lot of conversations which we have where the sales team they're like, hey, we need more ads and we need to have like more content and like can we try something viral and
yeah,
then so that's a tricky one. So I think somewhere my bigger role as this in the company is like just grounding people once in a while, like guys, we are not that, let
yeah,
we'll still we'll achieve it, we might be achieving low, but if we consistently ignore virality for for
yeah,
the future, then we'll be known for that. So even
yeah.
that's a game,
And
right? So
you'll go out of the
hmm,
algorithm, right? And
yeah,
you'll have your own identity. I
yeah,
think that's what I've been seeing is missing in almost most of the brands. I feel like they try to like from the beginning they especially around fashion, especially around consumption, right? They just try to do things that can just oh what's your ROAS, and how are you acquiring customers, how much money you're spending, and especially like when things are moving insanely fast with AI and all that shit, where you can you create your ideas in like minutes. I think this is another thing that I feel which people are losing is to like stick to it, right? I think that's something what I also like. I think I missed one part where about the manufacturing. I think I wanna ask you a bit, a bunch of things around that. You said that the industry is very unorganized,
Yeah.
right? And you can't build a product without having China or Vietnam in it. Do you think it's gonna change at any point, or we think or you think we've lost that train, or we should not? I mean, we should just accept it.
Mm, I think it's definitely, at least in the past few years, it's moving towards a better direction for. I mean, it's definitely not getting worse for
Yeah.
in a line, right? But um, see, Indian government, we have a lot of subsidies, right? Like for these setting up factories, but we are actually competing with countries who have mastered this industry, right? Like, or mastered the supply chain. So I don't think comparison is the right way, but it's also, how a country like Vietnam or China, there's a sense of discipline which we lack, which is why it's very difficult to design something from scratch with a factory in India. I would rather get couple of samples from Vietnam and China, and then if I give it to a factory in India and say replicate it, they're very happy and they're very easy. They'll do it. They'll do it 1:1 kind of a replica. But that footwear developer sitting there can't maybe make that first line. So in Indian factory language, they call it the handwriting. It's funny, like, so they call like this. If I have to ask them to make, oh, my handwriting is not good, I can't cut that. So that craftsmanship is missing. I mean, again, it's in modern footwear. Okay, I'm not like, of course, you have your kolhapuris and you have your traditional Indian footwear. Great, right? But when it comes to these modern footwear, all the synthetic, especially, right? Like, we have huge production capabilities. Like, we are huge in export and stuff like that. But uh, let's say it's all like all the raw materials have to come because India had their own restrictions in manufacturing synthetic materials to safeguard our natural materials like cotton and the other industry. I'm talking about the clothing and other industries. So India had a lot of rules in place earlier. So you couldn't make, let's say, 100% polyester
Yeah.
product back in the day. So our policies kind of put us on the back foot. But again, now it's changing. It's definitely getting better, but it's a long way. I think. I mean, I don't see we taking over their business, at least in my lifetime. Probably later, but it's a good one, and it's also a lot of factories. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. Okay, so in one of the first factory visits I had at Fila, we went to this OG factory, and Nike used to produce there. Used to. Now Nike left India, right? Like, they've left production in India altogether just because our lack of discipline, right? Like, molds were getting leaked, people were like pressing more shoes, reject shoes were going to the market. So Nike took a very deliberate call somewhere 10 years, 15 years ago, they're exiting India. Because when I went to this factory, all the Nike molds were like, they had spent around 50 lakhs on a laser machine to destroy the molds into four, so the factory can't use it. That's the amount of mistrust or distrust they have on Indian factories, right? Uh,
Insane.
that's it. Yeah. So that's funny. And then
It's a sad thing.
yeah. So
And I'm not sure if we're gonna get another opportunity.
exactly, right. So
it would have opened, I think, a lot of doors for
yeah,
more players to
yeah,
come.
yeah. And now that factory, I mean, very unfortunately, that particular factory, they were top three, but they're pretty much bankrupt in that sense. So, but of course, there are like brands like Puma, Adidas, because Puma has a very different business model in India. So they have a lot more factories working here. Adidas, couple of these Adidas, even the Yeezys were made by Apache Footwear in, I think, Hyderabad or somewhere. So there are a couple of factories which we do it, but it's like the 1% of factories, like probably 3 or 4 across India who
Yeah.
doing for multinational brands. And it's very, what do you say? Like, if you go to China, you'll find a cluster, you'll find an entire town only doing footwear, right? In India, like Agra is known for leather, let's say Delhi is something else, and then Chennai is all your synthetic, like all your injection molded, like let's say Crocs and a couple of those brands get made. So it's a bit scattered as well. Uh, but yeah, that's again, I don't think there's a solution because all of them will come together. But uh, it's positive, like it's getting better. I think as years goes by, with the government also helping, aiding these factories, it should. Also, the younger generation is taking over.
Yeah.
So that means our conversations are starting to be different. Like,
Yeah.
for example, if I go to the owner of the factory
Yeah.
and I
They want to
say,
challenge the industry even more
yeah,
also, right? I
yeah.
think
So
they
they're
are.
giving us a good
Yeah.
door, right? Like his dad or her dad would have told me, hey, I need 1,000 pairs, but he or she is ready, who's our age, who's ready to do 300, because they're like, oh, you're a
Yeah.
young brand. I've just taken over my dad's business, so can we,
Nice. Yeah.
so
That's a good
that's a
one.
good sign. So we are
Yeah.
getting opportunities
Yeah.
to try out.
Love it. What are your favorite brands? Ajaaz? What are some of the brands that you think, not just from India, but like, I mean, would love to know some from India as well. Your favorite brands.
Um, I think, I mean, it's for various different reasons, but I think within footwear, I've always looked upon Filling Pieces as a brand, an Amsterdam-based brand, a bit more artisan. Like how the way they build the brand was really good. Again, I just have a pair of their shoes, and probably I wouldn't because it's very different genre of shoes. But I like the way they've built the brand, right? But I also like this brand called Rains. They don't make anything shoes, but it's just like bags and raincoat.
Yeah.
And but brands which have, I don't know, like they were anti, uh, anti-virality in that sense. They've just like stuck to the craft and they've stuck to the storytelling. Um, Another cool brand, for example, like Zellefeld. I love Zellefeld for the
Yeah.
fact they are pretty much trying to capture the future of footwear,
Yeah.
right? Like, why are we even following sizes?
Yeah.
Why don't you scan your foot and we can 3D print
Yeah.
a footwear, right?
You
Which
have
is,
your shoe on
yeah,
Zellefeld.
yeah. So,
Talk about that.
yeah, I think why I did that was also when you do a lot of these very restrictive briefs, somewhere you need to tell yourself, hey, man, you can do better. I mean, you can do something,
Yeah.
20,000 worth, kind of
And
like,
I think you launched your shoe, and soon more and more designers started, putting their shoes. And now I think Nike is also
yeah, doing it.
collaborated with
Yeah,
them.
so I think again, shout out to Yash, no more click. So they had a 3D printing business, right? Like, so Yash and I, like, I think very early during lockdown, with whatever savings I had and things like that, and a lot of as a volunteering or like interest from Yash as well. We were experimenting with 3D printed footwear, right? Like we were trying to make soles and things because I was just curious. I wanted to see how, like, things work, or how can 3D print be a part of this. Somewhere along the ways when Zellefeld also, like, they were parallelly, Zellefeld was also getting built, and they, of course, with the funding and they kind of mastered this machine to do it, right? Because 3D printing a soft material is very tricky. So because we had those experiments on when Zellefeld opened up their platform, and they were very like a Discord community, and like you put your 3D model in the Discord, and they had a Discord
Yeah.
bot to check the, the tolerances. And so it's very community driven, right? That was also when Gravity Sketch had come with the VR. So that 2021-ish
Yeah.
era was really cool. So I got a Gravity. So I was in all of these Discord communities, right? Like for Gravity Sketch and like, let's say, your 3D printing. And it's within the world, like within the limited number of footwear designers, pretty much everyone was there in these communities. So that was a good networking as well, right? Folks from Puma and Nike and all those. Uh, so for me, doing that particular experiment to kind of just tap into the essence of future of footwear. It'll never be commercial in the recent future. I mean, it has its own. I think Zellefeld as a brand is also growing and things like that. But it's definitely the future. Like I love the concept of not following a size, right? Like every feet is different, right? Your left and right will
Yeah.
be 2 to 5 different. So that way, so for me, that was the main goal, doing Zellefeld, just to make sure I'm in that curve of footwear. And
Yeah.
then so that's how.
I loved it. I loved it.
And
Yasin?
I think other questions too.
7 minutes? Okay, cool. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
And some brands from India, I think. Again, within footwear, I mean, of course, hats off to Gully Labs and Comet and all these guys. I think when people ask me like,
Yeah.
how are you different? I don't
I'm sure
think
you're
we.
getting that question a lot. Like,
Yeah,
what do you think about these brands?
I don't think there's no comparison,
Yeah.
but I feel all of us are fighting the same battle to put India on the globe within the footwear space, right? Like Comet is doing their own game, Gully Labs own them, both well-funded companies, so they can do 5x more. We are still bootstrap. I mean, Ludic is still
Yeah.
bootstrap, which helps us be a lot more
Yeah.
freedom in
And
that
I think
sense.
that this more than shoes, you folks also been doing. I think you have some great shirts, t-shirts that you're
Yeah,
trying to do. So it's not maybe solely a footwear brand.
yeah,
We'd call them.
yeah. So I think in short, what we're trying to place ourselves as a footwear-first lifestyle brand. Now, what that means is 80% of our portfolio would be footwear, and then 20% of, let's say, apparel, accessories, and things like that. Um, Imagine a Uniqlo, right? In 10 years, Ludic could be a Uniqlo, but known within footwear, right? So a lot, the product offerings would be around, uh, not an H&M, not a Zara, but Uniqlo, very specific.
Yeah, love their white shirts,
Yeah.
white t-shirts, right? Um, okay, that takes us to the end of the conversation, Ajaaz. And I would really love to know, how you are, planning to unfold Ludic, and what does winning sort of looks like in, say, next decade to come, when we have more and more brands coming forward. There's so many folks making insane amount of noise. There are investors pouring insane amount of money, millions of dollars. uh, what's the best case scenario, and like when it comes to your vision about winning in the scene?
Uh, I think more than winning, let me say what would make me happy, right, from Ludic. So let's say if there's a product, if you've been using that product in your rotation for 3 years, and for unfortunately the product had to stop, you feel bad. Like that's the emotion I'm looking. Like now, imagine 10 products used by 10,000 people for a couple of years and consistently, right? I think the biggest win for any brand in the fashion space is when you come the second time, right? So that's where I'm looking at. I don't know, like, because I don't come from the business background, so I don't think I have a revenue in mind or I have these number of stores in mind. For me, it's purely emotional in that sense. Like, if you're using any product from Ludic and if we had to stop, if you feel bad, then I also feel bad. The product stop, but I've won.
Yeah.
I've taken a part. So for me, uh, that side, and which is what I'm doing at Ludic, right? Like there are much smarter people than me taking care of the revenue metrics and all that. But my goal is here is this, right? Like these smaller emotional levers to be in place. So winning would be just consistently, right? Like I think in our fifth, 10th year, we should have more and more IPs, things which we uniquely own. I would really want these products to be outside India as well, because I feel somewhere the product, the design language or like the product usability, especially like things like a sport bag and stuff, it's a very global product. I feel there's a larger audience who would accept the product, not just India, right? So these are the smaller things I'm looking forward. And as an industry, India will be winning if all these folks who the smaller brands like just throwing themselves, like don't give up halfway, right? Like let's push
Yeah.
it. Like this industry has to grow, and I think India should be known for these modern footwear and modern product designs being built, designed in India, like as like how Apple flexes like designed in California and things like that. It should be a thing. But yeah, for me personally, winning for Ludic is uh, like 10,000 people using 10 products year after year.
Love it, love it. Absolutely love the conversation, Ajaz. I'm so glad that this is finally happening
Yeah,
and we got a
likewise,
chance.
man. Good chat.
Right?
Yes.
Awesome.
All
See you on
right.
the other side.
Yes, see you on the other side. Thank you.